Hey ladies and gents, welcome back. This is going to be the next part of What If Naruto Had an Ancient Summoning. So, with that being said, make sure to like and subscribe. No like or anything like that, but it'll be nice if you do. And that being said, let's just jump right into the what if itself, where we left off. As the Forest of Death begins, everybody rushes off into the forest in various directions to begin the actual exam itself. Everybody charges off, going in different directions, like I just mentioned, and the team that obviously we're going to be covering is Naruto's team. And the direction they head is, exactly the same as it is in canon, and it goes pretty similar to the canon events, where Naruto would eventually have to go to the bathroom. Sasuke gives him the code, which he doesn't think Naruto can actually remember, and events would go exactly the same, except Naruto is actually pretty easily able to deal with the snake. This means that he arrives there sooner than he does in the actual, original, and he arrives there in time to help Sasuke and Sakura fight off Orochimaru before Sasuke even really has the time to take any battle damage or do anything like that. It's pretty much just at the point where Sasuke knocked back Orochimaru with a punch and sent him kinda flying, and reveals that this is not actually Naruto because there's absolutely no way he would have been able to remember that code, and a fly would have a better chance of doing so. Sakura, contemplates this and is like, actually, you might be right about that. And this is where Naruto, or the real Naruto, arrives and sends Orochimaru flying through a tree with a backhanded slap. This slap has enough power to make the skin, or whatever it is that actually happened, begin to peel off of Orochimaru's face, revealing that, in fact, yes, he is not Naruto, and that the one that just came in is the real Naruto. Naruto would begin battling with Orochimaru, and his fight would go quite different to what it was in the original. Not only is Naruto a lot stronger than he was even in his, it's not QB mode, but when he got his cloak and was pretty much brawling with the snakes and Orochimaru himself, he is also a lot, better and has a lot more jutsus and different techniques that he can use in order to try to combat him. He uses his summon as well, obviously speaking, his Versailles, as, is what his name is, and their battle would begin, with Versailles headbutting Orochimaru through the stomach, and him having to use his whatever weird substitution jutsu actually is in order to survive. This fight would pretty much go like this for quite a while until Orochimaru steps it up, dodging Versailles' headbutt. He then charges towards Naruto, sending him flying away with a punch before he charges at Sasuke in order to try to give him a curse mark. But Naruto managed to recover in time and actually grabs Orochimaru's leg and slams him into the ground before getting on top of him and ramming him down with a massive blow, sending him crushing down into the earth. As this actually happens, Orochimaru doesn't take too much damage for this and manages to get up from it, and he once again realizes that he's gonna have to deal with Naruto first, and actually deal with him, put him down in order to get a curse mark on Sasuke, to actually work and have the time to actually, use that ability of his. So with him realizing this, he charges towards Naruto at this point and actually summons Manda, the big snake, the big boy himself, and Naruto, seeing this, obviously summons the rhino in front of him in order to combat this. Now, with Versailles being around the level of a tailed beast, with Manda being pretty similar to that, but, only around the one tails level, whereas Versailles is much, much stronger than that, and probably around 8 tails or so in terms of how much power he actually can use. But that takes a little bit of time to charge up, so it would be a pretty pitched fight, with him having to, fight on the fly and everything like that. So this fight would commence between Manda and Versailles, while Naruto would go and battle with Orochimaru. Orochimaru is having a much harder time, like I said, than in the original against Naruto, but with Naruto only being slightly above Kakashi, or, somewhat around that level, he is absolutely nothing to Orochimaru once he actually powers up and is getting slammed around, and Naruto ends up using the ability that he learned just in the last arc, the wood release jutsu. With him doing this, Orochimaru thinks it might be a good idea to give Naruto a curse mark as well, in order to, have maybe more than one option for whose body he wants, because this boy is actually really powerful, along with him having a very powerful summoning jutsu. With Naruto using his wood style, this does even out the playing field quite a bit, because just how powerful the ability actually is in general, and Naruto uses many spikes, trees, logs, and everything like that. He can't go, massive, trees. He's pretty much on, Yamato's level in terms of wood release at this point, which means he is still no match for Orochimaru with this. This means that Orochimaru is actually able to place a curse mark on Naruto, which means that Naruto, similar to Sasuke, pretty much drops to the ground, completely unconscious at this point, and this allows Orochimaru to also get a curse mark placed on Sasuke, and with that, he decides that it is time to retreat, while Manda was pretty much holding off Versailles the entire time this was happening. Now, Versailles, after, Manda gets desummoned, would go over to Naruto and heal him back up to full strength. Now, with this actually happening, you might be wondering what actually, happens from this, because it took them hours in the original to wake up, and when they did, the curse mark was already activated. So, as Naruto stands up, a black mark begins pouring out of, the area on his neck where Orochimaru bit him, and covering his entire body, and making him just absolutely rage out on pretty much anybody that was around him. But Versailles, with his healing ability, actually manages to suppress this power, at least to a certain extent, and Naruto is able to control himself, and he actually retracts the curse mark back into him. He puts Sasuke on his back, and they head to where the, next teams or anybody would actually be, because they want to get back to the actual end of the Forest of Death in order to report exactly what it is that happened, because that person was just way too strong to be in the Chunin exams, and they were easily probably Kage level or something of that sort, based on what they actually know about it. So they pretty easily manage to defeat a team, and they find the right scroll before heading to the end of the forest. Once they arrive there, they arrive much sooner than they do in the original, and actually pretty shortly behind where Gaara had actually arrived. Now, he is not like before, but if Gaara wasn't there, they would have set records as well, but because of the fact that he was, this means that they don't really do anything, and, nobody really cares, except for the fact that Gaara is looking at them with the utmost interest because of just how quickly they actually managed to arrive there, and the fact that they look quite beaten up and don't really know why, because he can sense massive power in Naruto. So with him being able to sense this, he actually walks up to Naruto in order to try to talk to him, and he asks his name. Naruto, obviously saying his name, asks Gaara the same thing in return, who actually does tell him. They would then separate, and Naruto, Sasuke, and the rest of his team would report to Kakashi exactly what happened, who would then report it to Hiruzen, which means that the village, or people in general, are basically alerted to the fact that Orochimaru is in fact at the Forest of Death, and is going to probably interfere in the Chunin exams at some point in the near future. With them knowing this does not mean that the Chunin exams is cancelled or anything like that, and eventually the rest of the teams manage to arrive at where the Chunin exams final is going to happen, but it is revealed that there are just too many teams there, and so they are going to have a preliminary round in order to eliminate a few more teams, and a few more people just, in general. So the fights would go pretty similar to canon. Naruto would pretty easily manage to defeat Kiba. Sasuke still manages to defeat the person that he was fighting, the weird chakra-absorbing guy, and the rest of the fights go exactly the same as canon, except for one. Hinata versus Neji would go similar to canon at the start. They fight, and at the point where Hinata is basically knocked unconscious and Neji is going for the final killing blow, the person to react first is not all of the Jonin. It is Naruto here, who has pretty much reached the boiling point in terms of his rage. he would immediately pretty much teleport in terms of like everybody else being able to see him move in front of Neji, stopping his fist before all of the other Jonin can even react or, stand in front of Neji to stop it themselves. Naruto, holding Neji back, tells him that the fight is over and Hinata has had enough. Hinata falls back onto the ground completely unconscious at this point, and Neji pulls back his hand, not even being able to see Naruto move in front of him, making him realize that he stands no chance and has to suppress his rage that somebody was actually able to stop him, and that this person was also a participant in the Chunin exams. So this means that the break in the exams would actually happen, and what exactly kind of training are people going to be doing? Well, obviously speaking, Naruto is going to try and master his wood release, because he is still on the very early development stages of, what he can actually do with the level of chakra that he has, and so he would begin training with it in order to use pretty much more chakra and use it more efficiently so he can make bigger and more things later on using his wood style. So this training would go very well for Naruto, who actually manages to reach the point where he can make entire golems and dragons and things like that, along with the fact that he has great control over what he's actually creating, being able to make fine details and actually make things like houses or things like that. This means that the finals of the Chunin exams would arrive, and it would start off with Naruto versus Neji. Now, this fight would go a little bit different, as you might guess, than the original. Neji trained much harder than he did in the original just because he knew who his opponent was, and so he actually developed a new ability for this. His Byakugan has developed to the point that he can see the fates of other people. This is the ability that Momoshiki's Byakugan has actually had, and I'm just gonna say that it was possible for him to be able to use this because of how intensely he trained over the month before the Chunin exams. He looks at Naruto now and sees the massive pool of chakra under, Naruto, and see where, the Nine Tails and everything like that is actually sealed, and also begins to read Naruto's fate. As he sees glimpses and flashes, he realizes that Naruto easily defeats him, and so the fight would actually begin, with Neji really realizing that Naruto is above him more and more as the fight goes on, because not only is Naruto able to completely be able to react and dodge Neji's attack, but even when Neji uses the Gentle Fist and tries to go up to the 64 palms, Naruto blocks each and every one of his hands no matter how fast Neji seems to move. And with him seeing this, he uses the last ability that he has, the rotation. Naruto, swinging his hand in the opposite direction as Neji's, completely cancels it out, before sending Neji flying upwards with a massive uppercut as he falls down to the ground, completely unconscious from the single blow. Now, with Naruto winning this fight, he, would obviously go on to become a Chunin, but that doesn't happen quite yet. The rest of the fights would go pretty similar to their original canon, until eventually it reaches the point where Gaara is pretty much going to his, weird, partially transformed state, and is actually completely decimating Sasuke at this point. So the Genjutsu is released on everybody, and Naruto is actually able to completely avoid it in this timeline, and not actually even, go under the effects of it just because of how strong he is. And this means that he arrives at the battlefield with Sasuke much sooner than he does in the original, and let's just be honest here, he pretty easily, using his vast array of abilities along with the fact that he has his, big boy Rhino with him, he pretty easily manages to knock out Gaara. But as he returns back to the village, this is much sooner than it was in the original, and because of the fact that Naruto didn't have to use all of his chakra in this fight to be able to win it, he actually manages to arrive at the village before Hiruzen actually dies. he manages to use Versailles, and Versailles slams into the barrier that the four, sound genin actually use, and this completely shatters it. Now, Naruto charges towards Orochimaru, sending him flying away from Hiruzen, and they would pretty much begin to discuss what is happening and what is going on. But as they're doing this, Naruto is hit from behind. He sees Orochimaru standing in front of him and turns around, wondering who could have possibly done that, to see Danzo standing there. Versailles would heal Naruto now, and you may be wondering, why is Danzo here? Well, because of the fact that Danzo has seen what Naruto is capable of, he decided to join this fight with Orochimaru as well, not only to try to, get rid of this nuisance, that being Naruto, but also, instead of, Orochimaru trying to completely destroy the village, he actually sided with Danzo in order for Danzo to make up a bit of a coup or something of that sort in order to try to take over. With Danzo seeing that Versailles was actually able to heal Naruto, he ends up going all out here and is pretty much pummeling Naruto down. But once Naruto is able to get his footing and is healed by Versailles once again, he is actually able, to use his wood style in order to combat him, using a massive wooden dragon, because Naruto's cool like that. It actually is able to fly and slams down onto Danzo, getting rid of one of his Sharingan eyes. As this fight goes on, Naruto realizes that he has killed Danzo multiple times, but Danzo has some weird ability that just lets him kinda come back, but he doesn't really know what it is or why he can actually do it. He sees all of the eyes on Danzo's arm and realizes that every time he does this, he kills him, I guess you could say, one of the eyes closes and realizes that this must be what Danzo is doing and how he seems to be just coming back to life over and over again. As Naruto continuously kills, Danzo, obviously speaking, he is getting weakened and weakened and weakened, but Versailles is able to heal Naruto, which means that eventually it would come down to the point where Danzo only has one eye left. With him getting desperate at this point, he still isn't able to escape Naruto because of just how much, more powerful Naruto is than him with his wood style, and Naruto is able to, once again, slam down a massive wooden dragon down onto Danzo, finally killing him for the last time. But something weird happens. As Naruto pretty much thinks he dealt the final blow, he lays down on the ground entirely exhausted from this fight, and Versailles is almost out of chakra as well. With Versailles almost being out of chakra too, this means that when he does go and try to heal Naruto, this pretty much diminishes him completely, and he is about to de-summon. But then he turns and sees a weird black jutsu thing coming out of Danzo's chest, and Danzo says that if he is going to die, he is going to take Naruto with him. But Versailles gets in the way, pushing Naruto out in time for him to be able to survive. But because of the fact that he did this, that means that he isn't able to de-summon himself, and he is actually caught up in the explosion and killed. But that's where I'm going to leave this part off. Sorry for the cliffhanger, but, you guys are just going to have to deal with that. I'll see you guys in the next part.